what would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it. All right. Congrats, Rachel.
Disney's live action, although Snow White is here, it could fail in the most embarrassing way imaginable, and the main character, Rachel Zegler, might be the only one held accountable in the end.
Oh my gosh, I saw we didn't even see, but I saw the logo and I went, that's my name, Snow White's up there, and I cried my eyes out.
Now, what could she have done to cause this terrible disaster? And more significantly, how much money would the Snow White designers lose? Let's examine the projections. We assure you that they are dire. Although the official budget is close to $69 million, some insiders are speculating that the true costs could surpass $300 million due to numerous reshoots and production delays. With that kind of money, the movie must achieve significant box office results just to break even, let alone make a profit, and the current numbers aren't exactly encouraging.
Disney scaled back the planned lavish premiere for the show to have only a handful of tightly controlled media there. The film has been branded as woes.
Early estimates had the movie's opening weekend sitting somewhere between $63 and $70 million domestically, which, while not fantastic, was at least in the ballpark of success. But then reality set in and new projections started dropping. Now the opening weekend is expected to land somewhere between $48 and $58 million. And let's be real, those are not numbers you want when your movie costs more than some countries' annual budgets. And if you think Disney hasn't noticed, think again, the Mouse House is scrambling. Remember how their big live-action movies usually get massive premieres with ace stars, extravagant red carpets, and media going wild? Yeah, not this time. They're scaling back hard red carpet events. Our toned-down media access is strictly limited, and ticket pre-sales didn't even start until 11 days before release. It's almost like Disney is bracing for impact, trying to soften the blow before the numbers come in. And honestly, that's not exactly a confidence boost. But what has led to such troubling predictions? It all started with Disney's casting decisions. So Disney announced Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, as their brand new Snow White. You'd think, oh cool, another live-action remake. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? Well, no, the internet exploded faster than Cinderella at midnight. Why? Because some folks were not having it. They claimed that Snow White was named for the fact that her skin was as white as snow, a detail taken directly from the Grimm brothers' Grimm fairy tale. Then, with her Colombian and Polish heritage, Rachel entered the role that had been portrayed for decades as the ideal pale-skinned princess.
Snow White is called Snow White in this version of the film because, of course, she is not white as snow, is because she and her family go through a snowstorm and survive the snowstorm, and so it's a mark of her resilience.
This is where the online commotion started. People were either ecstatic about the portrayal or furious about what they perceived to be a betrayal of the original character. But Rachel wasn't going to take any of the criticism lying down. She basically addressed the backlash by stating that Snow White is a fairy tale that belongs to everyone. She also mentioned that the character is adored in Spanish-speaking nations and that adding a new viewpoint to the role was something to be proud of. But did that calm the storm? Not even close, because her next move was the one that sent the traditionalists into full-on meltdown mode. Zegler introduced another log, which she termed the 1937 animated masterpiece, just as the internet was beginning to cool off. She went into full critiquing mode, claiming that the plot revolved around a romance with a man who actually chases her, and that we definitely wrote a Snow White.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Although she made it apparent that her Snow White would not be the damsel in distress, she still had to wonder what this would be.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Well, in her words, her Snow White was going to be an empowered Snow White. And listen, in any other ERA, this might have been a mic drop moment, but in 2025, oh no, this turned the internet into an absolute war zone. Some fans were cheering, saying it was high time Snow White got an upgrade, and that a modern retelling with a strong female lead was exactly what audiences needed. But then there were the purists, the people who'd grown up loving the original film and saw this as Disney trampling all over its own history at this point. It's not just about Rachel Zegler. This is part of a much bigger conversation, and Hollywood studios want to be more diverse and inclusive. But every time they make a major casting decision like this, it sparks a wave of backlash from fans who want things to stay the way they've always been. We saw this exact same drama when Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel in The Little Mermaid. People were up in arms about it even. Though last time we checked, mermaids weren't real and don't exactly come with a set ethnicity. But just like with Snow White, the debate over staying true to the original versus embracing change turned into an all-out battle. However, if you think her comments about Snow White were the greatest issue, wait till you learn about Rachel Zegler's political standing.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves.
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
So the 2024 election happened, and Donald Trump won re-election. The internet was already in shambles, and then Rachel Zegler jumped in, throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. She hopped on Instagram and posted, "I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred leaning us towards a world I do not want to live in." Those are some strong words, right? But she wasn't done yet. She went on to say she worried about raising her future daughter in a world where Trump was president. And then came the line that really had people angry, made Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Yes, she said that on Instagram to millions of followers. And let's just say the internet detonated. Trump supporters, conservative commentators, and even some neutral onlookers were not amused. The backlash came in hot, with social media exploding into calls for boycotts, furious think pieces, and demands for Disney to fire Rachel from Snow White. Immediately people were calling her out for being hateful, divisive, and not exactly what you'd call Disney princess material. Some even compared her to Gina Carano, the actress who got the boot from The Mandalorian for her own controversial political takes. After about a week of the internet breathing fire at her, Rachel did what every celebrity in hot water does. She issued an apology. But was it enough? Well, let's break it down. She admitted she let her emotions get the best of her and regretted adding to the negative discourse. She even threw in a little, "We need to respect differing opinions and promise to be more positive moving forward." But did people buy it? Well, not entirely. Some fans appreciated that she owned up to it, but others were not convinced. They saw it as a classic PR move, a damage control attempt. Once she realized Disney wasn't going to back her up on this one. And speaking of Disney, let's just say the Mouse House really wanted to stay out of this mess despite all of the public calls for her to be replaced. Disney stood in the shadows, counting their billions, and let the internet fight it out without ever making an official statement.